I'm back with another dev blog, and this time it's not going to be quite as positive as the last one. I was very happy with the direction Wargaming was taking with the changes to carrier spotting. And, well, I don't actually enjoy making multiple videos back to back on the dev blog, but this one's just too important, and that's going to be tier 11 ships. We'll get into it, but I just think it's such a horrible change and addition to the game. It's going to make the game far less good to play. I think it's just going to overall hurt the matchmaker and hurt the experience of playing this game. Outside of one really specific scenario, but even then I don't think it's going to really help too much on that front. But I just want to start off by noting that they talk about it as other news. So either they don't think it's a big deal, or they're trying to kind of slip it into this dev blog. I don't know. But Pan-Asia cruisers are coming. We'll see how those go. Smoke HE spam, something that was looked at when the Minotaur came into the game and was determined to be too strong to give a single ship the ability to smoke up and have a HE spam at the same time. But here we are. It's a different game. And probably different developers and team leads making decisions, because things have really shifted over the last couple of years, haven't they? Asymmetric battle coming back, but here's the big one. Rental super ships in random battles. This is going to be a horrible change, a horrible addition, because of the gimmicks. If these ships were just continuations of their existing lines, maybe, right? Maybe if we had like normal tier progression. But the unfortunate thing about super ships is they bring some incredibly strong gimmicks and activated abilities. So for ships like the Satsuma, you have a Yamato, right? You give it bigger caliber guns, less of them, right? But then all of a sudden you give it this ability to have disgusting levels of dispersion once every 4 shots. I don't know. On top of extra HP, extra survivability through its anti-aircraft, as well as somewhat better armor. I don't know if I would say it's completely better, but it's just a much better Yamato. It makes sense in its normal package compared to the Yamato to be a tier higher. But then it adds the gimmick, the adjustment of fire gimmick. Hannover is a similar case. I would argue even more so, just because its turret angles from the rear turrets. That's one of the GK's weaknesses. For those of you that have played it, you know it's incredibly difficult to shoot all your turrets without, getting hit really hard in return, because you have to expose so much broadside. The Hannover has, I think, around 30-degree angles on its rear turrets firing forward, meaning you're going to be entering that auto bounce territory, making the ship incredibly tanky. And it's a giant ship, very easy to hit it with torps, that kind of thing. But this adjustment of fire gimmick, you're getting now secondaries that reach 14 kilometers after you shoot 4 accurate salvos, I believe it is. It's not as strong or game-breaking of a gimmick, I would argue, as the Satsuma's one is, but it's fun. Really what it comes down to is Hannover is tough to kill in comparison to a ship like the Kurfürst because of those turret angle improvements. Ships like the Conde, I don't think I really need to explain why that gimmick's overpowered. Just go watch my video where I get 3 dev strikes in one game. Yeah. The Annapolis being a Des Moines with an extra turret. That seems innocent enough, but considering that ship can fight tier 9s, I think that considering all these ships can fight tier 9s is going to be insane. Tier 9 is going to be a horrible tier to play all of a sudden. But the Annapolis is a Buffalo with Des Moines reload. Right? It's going to be insane for people to fight against that kind of ship. Des Moines is already a very strong ship. It's not overpowered, I wouldn't say, but it's a very, very good ship. Giving it more DPM, that's going to be really tough to fight. I think one of the biggest issues with the game right now is the blowout games. I think we all can agree that games that are over in 5 minutes aren't particularly fun. And I think the reason we're getting a lot more of those games is that people are getting spotted quicker, with CVs being in a lot of games. And I think this isn't going to be a complaining about CVs. We'll save that for a different time. But objectively, I think we can say if there's the CV in the game, you are going to be spotted sooner than if there isn't a CV in the game, right? I think that's fair to say. And then at the same time, because Wargaming has boosted the popularity of CVs, there's just going to be more of them in your game. So you're getting spotted sooner overall. I think that's a fair thing to say. And suddenly, we're adding ships that have more damage output at longer ranges. So you're getting spotted sooner, and the ships you're fighting against are able to pump out much more accurate, powerful damage at even longer ranges. So I think, given those two things are already resulting in a ton of blowouts, people dying incredibly quickly off spawn because they can't even make it to the islands without getting spotted, long range shots, crossfires, that kind of thing, killing ships very early, or at least crippling them massively, results in a lot of blowouts. I think that's really one of the main reasons. It can't just be that teams are so imbalanced all the time. That's not how random matchmaker works. There's going to be some instances of that guaranteed, but I think it's more than just, wow, my team is always bad or something like that. There's got to be something in the gameplay that's resulting in these blowouts, and I think it's that. Spotting early, longer range, more accurate, powerful damage, resulting in more ships killed sooner at longer distances. I think that's the reason blowouts are happening. Super ships are just going to add to that. More damage, more output at longer ranges. It makes sense, higher tiers, they're going to be better. They're going to be improvements on the previous tier. But I think it's just a bad decision to add this into a game that already has a problem with blowout matchmaking, blowout matches, where the game is decided in the first 5-6 minutes. That's not really fun for people to play. And the super ships are going to add more matches like that. Something I think Wargaming has struggled with for a while is the design concept that a game is only healthy when new content is being added to it. And that's resulted in a lot of very gimmicky lines. I think we can say that the Italian battleships, the German battle cruisers, the new Pan-Asia cruisers, a lot of these newer lines that have come into the game more recently are very gimmick driven. They're good because of their very extreme power in a very narrow area. And that results in these ships being really not very good in most scenarios and incredibly powerful in a few scenarios. And if you're a good player, you can take advantage of that, and that's cool. But it means these ships are, a lot of the times, when you can't make use of that really, really powerful gimmick, they're not really that fun to play. And then when you can make use of that gimmick, they're really not fun to play against. I think that's one of the biggest issues with this game is a lot of the ships that have come out recently don't feel all that satisfying to play, and they don't feel all that satisfying to play against. At least when I compare them to some of the ships that have come out way in the past, right? The release ships, let's take a look at a ship like Montana. One that I would say is not the strongest battleship at all, given that it struggles with overmatch, but you got a ship with good armor, relatively good HP, decent AA, a really good heal, pretty accurate main guns, a heavy broadside, and you have a ship that is good in most scenarios, and if you die to a Montana, you're generally not so upset because it's a ship where you know that it's not gimmicking you. It's just something that, hey, I got caught broadside to a Montana, and he dev-struck me, or something like that. Generally, I would say that a lot of the older ships fall into this category, and a lot of the newer ships are more gimmick-driven and make the game more frustrating to play. So adding rental super ships into random battles, I think is going to increase this because they are adding more gimmicks. And the reason they're adding more gimmicks, like I said earlier, is this design philosophy that comes down to our game is healthy when we are adding new content to it. Not if the game is fun to play, if the gameplay that players are experiencing is keeping them hooked for extended periods of time, that's not the measuring stick. The measuring stick appears to be, are we adding new content or not? And that's too bad, because that's resulting in a lot of broken matches, a lot of experiences that really aren't that enjoyable to play or to play against. And I think that's really what my thoughts are on Superships. They're just adding more gimmicks that are going to create less engaging, less fun experiences. So I hope Wargaming really reconsiders doing these Superships. I don't think they will, because with the design philosophy of we constantly need to add new content, being able to add an extra tier to every single existing line of tech tree ships gives them incredible possibilities to add new, broken, gimmicky content. And perhaps they're feeling a little bit creatively blocked. Maybe some of the new lines that are 1 to 2 years in the future that they're planning out, they don't really like the concept of, or they're just seemingly rehashes of old content. So they need to figure out a way to add new content, because that's the design philosophy. The game is healthy when we're adding new content. So instead of going wider with more lines, why don't we go taller with more tiers? And I think that's going to result in a worse game. To be fair, I haven't played against Superships in random battles. I've only experienced them in ranked, just like all of you, and they're kind of frustrating a lot of the time. They're hilarious to use and make use of the gimmicks, but when your gimmick isn't up, it's kind of just bland. And that's too bad. I'm hoping for Wargaming to consider making the game a more fun experience more often. Less extremes, more consistent fun. That's what I'd like to see. That's about it for that part of the dev blog. I talked a lot about Superships, but I have a lot of thoughts about the game and its design and how its future is not looking so hot. It's a little bit disappointing. Something else you should probably know about is that there are some new ships coming in the Italian destroyers. They're going to be short gun range with high DPM and long range torpedoes. They're going to get this exhaust smoke like all the Italian ships get, and an emergency speed boost. That's a short duration speed boost that gives you an incredibly fast ship for a short duration of time. So they're going to be somewhat interesting to play, I think. I'm not sure how good they're going to be. It really depends, perhaps, on this CV spotting change. If planes aren't able to transmit your location to everyone across the map, possibly it's going to be easier for destroyers to push in on flanks, and that is where I can see these things being very, very good. The other thing that some people have asked me about is this Pan-American battleship with a ton of secondaries, of course. I think that it's really going to depend on the survivability and the accuracy of those secondaries. That's really what it comes down to with this ship. We don't really know how that's going to go yet, so we'll see once it starts to get released. But I'll be honest with you guys, I'm starting to shift away from battleships, more towards destroyers. They just feel a little bit more engaging to me, a little more consistent, and I feel like I can impact the game a lot more. I don't feel like I'm reliant on RNG so much. And that's about it for the dev blog this time. I hope it was okay. We had 2 dev blog videos in a row. I just really wanted to talk about Superships in random battles. I think it's important that I do that and let you know what I think and what is coming up, so that maybe Wargaming can listen. It's unlikely, but maybe they'll hear some of these complaints and reconsider some things. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day.